How can spatial and socio-political implications, derived through history, tradition and culture, inform and enable architectural design to form a bridge between people in a divided Cyprus? Being a citizen of Cyprus, I found it wondrous for such thing to exist, and at the same time quite sad and tragic, especially since my whole family are refugees who lost their homes. The buffer zone stands as a constant reminder of this. So, building something out of this that could potentially create a stepping stone to something better would give me hope. Nicosia, Cyprus stands as the last divided capital. A green line, called the buffer zone, separates the Greek Cypriots from the Turkish community. The United Nations is currently acting as a peacekeeping force on the island, preventing a recurrence of fighting. So I started off my research by taking a walk along the buffer zone. There I saw different textures, different fabrics, but what really caught my attention was the concrete filled barrels, the metal gates, and the barbed wire. This made the area really uninviting. My drive to learn more about the buffer zone led me to dig deeper. When you imagine that in the 1950s we all used to live together peacefully, it begs the question whether we could actually do that again. I mean, Greek and Turkish Cypriots shared so much. We shared the same tradition, history, culture. I could perhaps see it.
Midnight in Nicosia, and Sir Hugh Foot entering Parliament is followed by Archbishop Makarios, who is to take over as first President of Cyprus. Dr. Kutchuk, the Turkish Cypriot leader, is to be Vice President.
Trouble began in the 1960s after the declaration of the Republic of Cyprus. 20th of December 1963, the date that was later labelled as Bloody Christmas, marks the date that violence broke out between the two communities. This is what caused the first buffer zone to be created, which sadly separated the two communities. In 1974, tensions built up and Turkish forces invaded Cyprus. The invasion forced thousands of people to leave their homes. Two of those people were my grandparents, and this is their journey. Another sad yet interesting story was Victoria's.
My first thought while all of this is going on was that I should record it. I picked up an old school book, I tore out a bunch of pages, and I started writing down everything that was going on.
I then took a look on the other side of things, and a great example is the following story.
Thank you. So I had like Greek neighbors and like Turkish neighbors. Like we were just waking up and like we were having coffee together. One day in my house, one day in their house, and like everything was fine. There wasn't any problem. That Greek people are getting some guns and like other stuff, getting ready for something, and they just wanted to escape. And they just basically started a new life from the point zero.
As a consequence of the conflict, the rough buffer zone that was drawn was further extended to cut across the whole island. By the time Turkish military forces seized action, 35% of the island had been overtaken. In 1983, Turkey declared the pseudo-state and declared the occupied north as the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. This pseudo-state is not recognized by the rest of the world except Turkey. Fortunately, it does appear that links between the two communities exist, like that of my mother's.
I met Isabel a long time ago when we were going to college in England. So I asked her, why don't you speak Greek? And she replied to me, I'm Turkish Cypriot. And since that day, we became very good friends, and we're still friends.
It's easy to become friends with another Cypriot. And that's what happened with Maro.
A great step forward, perhaps, was the opening of the borders in 2003. This was 29 years after the invasion. And while some people found it beneath them to show their passports to go look at their own homes, others saw it as an opportunity to maybe relive some memories. Several checkpoints were opened across the border, and this is one of them in central Nicosia. Since 1974, it is compulsory for all males to join the army at the age of 18 for a certain time period. This ensured that guard posts along the buffer zone remained active. One of the soldiers managing this post was actually my brother. Neither he or myself found much sense in this though. In 2020, a military step back from the Turkish from the ghost town of Varosha not only enabled visitations to the city itself, but also created some controversy. On the one hand, it's great that people can see their homes, but it seems that the Turkish Republic are planning on demolishing it and redeveloping the area.
That's our house, the tall building on the left.
How you feel like a lion in a cave. They open a small window, but I cannot go out.
Until today, the island still remains divided. The buffer zone still remains untouched, a piece of no man's land where buildings are left abandoned, left to decay. While the United Nations remain in control of the buffer zone, their role demands little of them in terms of maintaining historic buildings and monuments in it. Ironically, as a protest to the turbulent past of Cyprus, within the buffer zone, Bila, a special village, actually exists. The village is a host to both Turkish and Greek Cypriots and is governed through a joint system. Bila does offer hopes for the future, I think, and I could see it being a model for future peaceful coexistence.